Imagine you've just opened a file or started a database connection in PHP. What you get back isn't a number or a string or an array. Instead, you get a special kind of value called a resource. In this video, I'll explain exactly what a resource is, why PHP uses them, how to check them in your code, and the best practices for managing them so your apps stay fast and reliable. A resource in PHP is a compound type that acts like a special variable. It's not a regular data type like integer or string. Think of it as a reference or handle to something that lives outside of PHP's normal memory. An open file, a live database connection, a socket, or an image processing context. The resource itself is a lightweight pointer. The heavy work happens in the external system it represents, like your database server or the operating system's file manager, because resources point to external things. You can't treat them like ordinary values. You won't add two resources together or split them into characters. Instead, you pass them to functions that know how to use that kind of handle. For example, when you call fopen to open a file, PHP returns a resource representing that open file. You then use that resource with fred, frite, or fclose to read, write, and finally close the file. PHP gives you two simple functions to work with and inspect resources. First is resource. This function answers a yes or no question. Is this variable a resource right now? It's useful for safety checks before you call functions that expect a valid handle. Second, getResource type returns a short description of what kind of resource you have, like stream for files or sockets, or MySQL link for some older database connections. Use isResource first, and only call getResource type when you know the variable is indeed a resource. Resources have a life cycle. When you create one, PHP allocates a handle and keeps a reference to the underlying system object. If you don't close or release a resource when you're done, it can stay open until the script ends, consuming memory or OS handles. That's why it's best practice to explicitly free resources. Call fclose on file streams, miscli close, or the appropriate close function for your database driver, and close sockets when finished. Proper cleanup prevents leaks and avoids hitting limits like too many open files. Modern PHP has been moving away from plain resources for many libraries. Some extensions now return objects instead of raw resources, and many modern database libraries like PDO use objects that manage their own underlying connections. Still, resources are common in built-in functions and older extensions, so understanding them remains important, especially if you maintain older code or interact directly with low-level functions. There are a few common pitfalls to watch for. First, don't assume a function always returns a resource. It may return false on failure. That's why wrap your calls with checks. If fopen fails, handle the error instead of passing false into fred. Second, avoid serializing resources. They can't be converted into strings and reconstituted elsewhere. And finally, be careful when passing resources between functions or scopes. If a resource is closed in one place, other parts of your code that expect it will fail. To recap, a PHP resource is a special handle to an external thing like a file or a connection. Use isResource and to confirm a variable is a resource, and getResource type to learn what kind it is. Always clean up with the appropriate close function, and prefer modern object-based APIs when possible. Mastering resources will make your code more robust and prevent subtle runtime problems. Now that we've learned about PHP resources, let's move on to another important concept in PHP, string functions. In PHP, strings are one of the most frequently used data types because almost every program or website needs to handle text in some way. Whether you are displaying a welcome message, collecting user input, or storing data in a database, you'll find yourself working with strings all the time. To make this process easier, PHP provides several built-in functions to manipulate and work with strings efficiently. One of the most common and useful string functions is called strlen, written as strlen with parentheses. The strlen function simply returns the length of a string. In simple terms, it counts how many characters are present in the string, including letters, numbers, special symbols, and even spaces. For example, if you write echo starlin, hello world, PHP will count every single character, including the space between the two words, and return the total number, which in this case is 11. This means the string hello world contains 11 characters in total. The syntax of the function is quite simple. Just write starlin, followed by the string you want to measure inside parentheses. For example, starlin text, where the variable text holds your input string. The function then goes through each character one by one in memory and keeps counting until it reaches the end of the string, finally returning the total number of characters. It's important to remember that starlin also counts white spaces. That means if your string contains extra spaces at the beginning, end, or between words, those will also be included in the count. This is something to keep in mind when validating form data or checking password lengths, because even one extra space can make a difference in the result. The starlin function is very useful in real-world programming tasks, especially when you want to control or limit the number of characters users can enter in a form, or when you need to check if a password meets a specific minimum length. Starlin is a built-in PHP function that helps you calculate the total number of characters in a string, including letters, spaces, and symbols. It's simple to use, efficient, and extremely handy for text validation and processing. In the next lesson, we'll look at more string functions like startalower, startopper, and substar, which allow you to modify, format, and extract parts of strings easily. Now let's look at a practical example to understand how the starlin function works in PHP. In this code snippet, we are using a simple PHP script that calculates the length of a string. The code starts with the PHP opening tag, followed by the command echo starlin, hello Steve, and then closes with the PHP ending tag. What this line of code does is call the starlin function with the string hello Steve as its input. The function counts every single character in the text, including all the letters, the space between the two words, and even the exclamation mark at the end. After counting everything, the function returns the total number of characters found inside that string. When this code runs, the output is 12. That means the string hello Steve has 12 characters in total. The important thing to remember here is that starlin doesn't ignore spaces or punctuation marks. It includes everything exactly as it appears inside the quotes. So even the space between hello and Steve is treated as one character. After understanding starlin, PHP also provides another useful string function called ucwords. This function doesn't count characters, but instead counts how many words exist in a given string. So while starlin measures the total number of characters, ucwords focuses on the number of words. Both are very helpful depending on what kind of text analysis or validation you want to perform in your PHP program. Now let's take a closer look at the syntax of the PHP function ucwords. This function is written as ucwords, string, returnval, chars. It might look a little complex at first, but it's actually quite simple once you understand each part. The first parameter, called string, is the text you want to analyze, basically the input string from which PHP will count the words. The second parameter is returnval, which tells PHP what kind of result you want from the function. This value can be 0, 1, or 2, and each number changes the type of output you'll get. If you set returnval to 0, the function will simply return the number of words found in the string. For example, if your string is hello Steve, the function will return 2 because there are 2 words in that sentence. If you use returnval as 1, PHP will return an array that contains all the words found inside the string. That means instead of just a number, you'll get a list of the words stored in an array format. Finally, if you use returnval as 2, the function returns an associative array. This means PHP will not only give you the words, but also their position indexes inside the original string. The third parameter, called chars, is optional and allows you to include additional characters that should be treated as part of a word. For example, if your string includes special symbols or accented letters, you can specify them here so that PHP recognizes them as part of the word instead of ignoring them. The ucwords function in PHP is a powerful way to count or extract words from a string. You can choose to get a simple word count, a list of words, or even a detailed array showing the position of each word. This makes it extremely useful for text analysis, word counting, or even building small text processing tools. Now, let's understand this concept with the help of a simple example. Code snippet 14 demonstrates how the ucword count function works in PHP to count the total number of words in a given string. In this example, we are using the PHP script echo ucword count. Hello, Steve. When this line runs, PHP processes the text inside the quotation marks and checks how many words exist in it. In this case, the string hello, Steve contains 2 words, hello and Steve. The function detects the space between them and treats it as a word separator. As a result, the output returned by PHP is the number 2. So what this means is that ucword helps us analyze a string and find how many separate words it contains. This can be useful in many practical situations, such as when you want to count words in a paragraph, limit word input in a form, or even create a small word counter feature in a website or app. The function is very accurate and includes all valid words, ignoring symbols or punctuation that don't count as part of the word. After this, we move on to another important predefined PHP string function called starrev. This function is used to reverse a string. It takes the text you provide and flips the order of the characters, displaying it backward. For example, if you enter the word hello, the output will be olek. It's one of the most basic yet powerful string operations used by developers, especially when learning string manipulation or testing logic in PHP. Now let's talk about another simple and very useful PHP string function called starrev. This function is used to reverse a string, meaning it takes your text and flips the order of every character. The syntax for this function is written as string strev, string. It accepts one input, which is the string you want to reverse, and it returns the reversed version of that same string. To see how it works, let's look at this short example. In code snippet 15, the PHP script says, echo strev, hello, Steve. When this code runs, PHP reads the text inside the quotation marks and reverses every single character. So the output becomes evetsole. As you can see, the exclamation mark comes first, followed by the reversed letters of each word, and even the space between them stays in the same position relative to the reversal. It's a simple yet powerful function that doesn't require loops or extra logic. Just one built-in command that does the entire job for you. The strev function is one of the most basic string operations developers learn in PHP. It's often used to test how functions manipulate text, or in some beginner projects where you might want to create simple encoding or text mirroring effects. It's also a fun way to understand how PHP handles strings internally. After learning this, we move to another very handy function called strpos. This function is used to search for a specific piece of text inside a string. When PHP finds that text, it returns the position of the first match within the string. However, if the text is not found, the function returns the value false. This means you can easily check whether a certain word or character exists in a given string. For example, if you're processing an email address, you could use starpos to find whether it contains the IJAR symbol. If the symbol exists, you'll get its position number. If not, you'll get a false result. The strev function helps you reverse an entire string quickly, while the starpos function helps you search for specific words or characters inside a string. Both of these functions are simple, efficient, and extremely helpful for handling text in PHP. Now let's understand how the starpos function works in PHP. The syntax for this function is written as starpos, string, find, start. It accepts 3 parameters. The first one is the string you want to search within. The second one is the text you want to find, and the third one, which is optional, defines the position from where the search should begin. This function is very helpful when you need to locate the position of a specific word or character inside a longer string. To see this in action, let's look at a simple example. In code snippet 16, the PHP code is written as echo strpos, hello, Steve. When this code runs, PHP searches for the word Steve inside the text hello, Steve. It starts counting from 0 and moves character by character until it finds the first match. Once the word is found, it returns the position where it begins. In this case, the word Steve starts at index number 6. That's why the output displayed on the screen is the number 6. The *POS function is very useful for finding whether a certain piece of text exists inside a string. If the text is found, it returns the position number, and if it isn't, the function returns false. For example, you can use *POS to check if an email address contains the I symbol, or to verify whether a specific word appears in a sentence. This function is often used in text processing, data validation, and search operations. After that, we also have another important PHP function called strReplace. This function is used to replace words or characters inside a string. For example, if your text says, "Hello, Steve," and you want to change it to "Hi, Steve," you can use the strReplace function to do that instantly. It's a simple, one-line function that lets you modify text easily and is very popular among PHP developers for formatting, cleaning, or updating strings dynamically. Now let's take a closer look at the syntax of the strReplace function in PHP. It is written as strReplace, search, replace, string, count. This function is used to replace specific text or characters within a given string. It takes 4 parameters, each with a specific purpose. The first parameter, search, represents the value or word that you want to find inside the string. The second parameter, replace, is the new value that will replace the old one. The third parameter, string, is the main text or variable in which the replacement will take place. And finally, the fourth parameter, count, is optional. It keeps track of how many replacements were successfully made within the string. For example, if you write a code that says strReplace, hello, hi, hello, Steve, a PHP will look for the word hello and replace it with hi. So the final output will become, "Hi, Steve." If the word hello appears multiple times in the string, PHP will replace each one of them, and the count variable will store how many replacements were done. This function is very useful when you need to clean, modify, or update text dynamically in your code. For example, changing words in a paragraph, correcting spelling mistakes, or formatting user input. It's simple, fast, and one of the most commonly used string functions by PHP developers. Now let's look at a simple and practical example of how the strReplace function works in PHP. In code snippet 17, we have a short PHP script written as echo strReplace, Steve, Diana, hello, Steve. When this code runs, PHP searches the string hello, Steve for the word Steve. Once it finds that word, it replaces it with the new word Diana. So the final output that appears on the screen is hello, Diana. This example clearly shows how the strReplace function makes it very easy to modify text within a string. You don't have to write complex logic or use loops. With just one simple command, PHP automatically finds and replaces the words for you. This is especially useful when you need to update specific parts of a sentence, replace usernames, correct spelling errors, or even clean and reformat text dynamically in your code. After understanding this, let's move on to another useful PHP string function called ucwords. This function helps you automatically convert the first letter of each word in a string into uppercase. For example, if your text says hello world, the ucwords function will turn it into hello world. This is perfect for improving text presentation, especially when you're working with titles, names, or any kind of formatted display text. So in short, the strReplace function helps you replace words or characters easily, and ucwords helps you make your text look neat and properly capitalized. Both are simple but powerful tools that make working with strings in PHP much easier and more professional. Now let's look at the syntax and a simple example of how the ucwords function works in PHP. The syntax for this function is written as string ucwords, string SSTR. It takes one parameter, which is the string you want to modify. The purpose of this function is to change the first letter of every word in the string to uppercase, making your text look more polished and properly formatted. To understand this better, let's go through code snippet 18. In this example, we first create a string variable that says, "My name is Cinderella." Then, we apply the ucwords function to that variable by writing str.ucwords sctr. Finally, we print it using echo*b. When this code runs, PHP automatically converts the first letter of each word in the sentence into uppercase. So the output becomes, My name is Cinderella. This example clearly shows how the ucwords function helps make text cleaner and more professional. It's especially useful when you're displaying names, titles, or sentences where capitalization matters. Instead of manually converting each word, PHP handles it for you in one simple step. Now let's move on to the next important topic, PHP Numeric Functions. In PHP, numbers can have special properties, especially when they grow beyond the limits of normal numerical values. Infinity is one such concept. It refers to a number that is greater than the maximum possible floating point value in PHP, which is defined as PHP float max. So, whenever a numeric value exceeds this limit, PHP treats it as infinity. To check whether a given number is finite or infinite, PHP provides two very useful built-in functions, isFinite and isInfinite. These functions help you test the nature of a numeric value. The isFinite function is used to determine whether a number is within the range of finite values, meaning it's not infinite. On the other hand, isInfinite checks if a value has crossed the maximum floating point range and therefore represents infinity. These functions are extremely useful when working with very large numbers, scientific calculations or mathematical operations where results can sometimes overflow beyond normal limits. By using these functions, you can ensure that your code behaves correctly even when dealing with extreme numeric values. All right, guys, up to this point, we've learned everything about PHP string functions, like stir replace, ucwords, and how they actually work in real examples. You've seen how PHP handles text processing, replacements, and formatting with just a few simple built-in commands. But in the next video, we're going to move into something completely new and really interesting. PHP Numeric Functions. In this next part, you'll learn how to check whether a number is finite or infinite, using PHP's built-in functions like isFinite and isInfinite. These are powerful tools that help you handle very large numbers and mathematical operations safely in your programs. So don't miss the next video, where we'll explore this topic in detail using Code Snippet 19 and see it all in action. And before you go, if you're enjoying these tutorials and learning something new every time, make sure to subscribe to Huzaifa TV Official and press the bell icon so you never miss the upcoming lessons. Your support really helps the channel grow and motivates me to create even more useful coding content for you.